Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
and we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into Tuesday, baby. Sterling Holmes, JB Briscoe right here on the Arrowhead Addict podcast. If you hear a little pep in my step, it's because I have the new podcast studio up and running down here at the new crib. My wife was an absolute sweetheart this weekend. I was out golfing with the boys, and she decided, what am I going to do? She got some soundproof paneling, put that thing up behind me, and got this all ready to go for today. So shout out to my wife, who is an absolute sweetheart. Shout out to Briscoe, by the way, for that sign over my shoulder.
That's what I saw that as we were yapping about in the intro before we started going. I saw it. I didn't want to say anything until I got live. That right there, it's a good size. It looks good. It's gonna fit your space perfectly. Sorry, I got too excited. I interrupted Sterling's story. That was our wedding gift to the wonderful Holmes couple, and I'm proud to see it. Proud to see it back there in a real high value spot. Hopefully, bringing the vibes of the Holmes Biergarten that you really need here.
Big time, with the mini fridge right next to me, just across there. I'm looking at it right now in the basement, full of KC Beer Co. beer. So things are good right now in the new man cave. But
not a joke and not good for the show. But can you actually please have Nat tell me where she got that paneling, just so I can get like a little point of reference? You can text me if you know where it is. I've been looking at like that type of paneling. And I think that might be something I need to bite the style there. I trust her ability to pick out materials and decorate.
No, so you don't copy me. Go find it yourself, scumbag.
I'll get a different color or something. Some of those are $1 billion, and some of them are like reasonably priced. I just need to know which ones are not garbage or $1 billion.
These were reasonably priced because it's me. I'm a frugal man, just like the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are frugal too when it comes to paying a lot of players, to an extent, of course. To an extent,
Clark Hunt can be, yeah.
It can be. All right, let's talk a little bit about the draft. I do want to talk about the combine because there were some interesting players that really stood out. First off, if you're a Mizzou fan, you saw Mimbu just absolutely go up and skyrocket up draft boards. He was a guy who was more than likely already going to be too pricey for the Chiefs range at 31. He played right tackle at Mizzou, but was an absolute stud, PFF production. And then he had the athleticism score that was through the roof at the combine, 332 pounds and ran a 4.91. His top speed of 20.28 was actually faster than there was a video of Tyreek Hill breaking away in an NFL game. Now I get pads versus no pads, but also the man is 332 pounds who had a top speed of 20.28 miles per hour. Dude is just an athletic freak, and now there was talks of him being the first tackle drafted in this upcoming draft. So shout out to Mimbu from Mizzou. I was laughing, going, "Can we have like a Laramie Tunsil situation? Can he just somehow tank his draft stock so the Chiefs can grab him at 31? Because that would be ideal." You might not have much to add on Mimbu.
Sorry, I didn't know. I could hear the ball hanging in the air there for just long enough where I thought that was the ramp up, and then it sat there and I went, oh, nope, that was to me, wasn't it? And at that point I thought all I can really do is let that ball fall. No, I think you have both being a Chiefs representative, and in this instance, more importantly, being a Mizzou representative, which I'm hoping is going to continue to do us some good with another player that might be around the Chiefs range. But they're just not really going to be in realistic striking distance for any of the risers of this tackle class. And I think that's going to probably be an ongoing thread throughout the next month or so as we're talking about all this.
And that's kind of where I wanted to start, was because the title is obviously wide receiver in the first round, because I don't think there's a tackle that makes a lot of sense for KC in the first round. It's not a great year, which I want to get into a little bit later with you with Trey Smith, the franchise tag, and just some talking points of why that may have made a lot of sense, even if it is only going to be for one more season. Tackle class, free agent wise, as well as specifically in the draft, is just not great. Again, Mimbu might be the best tackle prospect, and he's been a right tackle.
And a huge, I'm still catching up on draft stuff. One thing I have heard enough times for it to really stick. So many of even the top handful of guys on the offensive line, you're either having a right tackle conversation or you're hearing a phrase that the Chiefs do not want to hear, which is, yeah, he might be more of a guard at the NFL level, though. And that's happening because of arm length, because this class has a bunch of T-Rexes in it, apparently. And the Chiefs really like those long-armed tackle prospects. And you saw what happens to great linemen with shorter arms with Joe Tooney in the Super Bowl. So you're not really finding the stylistic fit that the Chiefs typically seem to like at tackle. And if you told me that Kingsley Suamataia last year would have been a late first round pick in this year's class, I'd believe you.
Yeah, I think that actually is a good point. I think Kingsley may have been a late first in this particular one. All right, wide receiver, before we go back to the offensive line again, I want to almost end with that franchise tag and the offensive line and what the Chiefs can do. But Luther Burden, I thought, put on an absolute show at the Combine. There have been multiple people who have had him now falling out of the first round. Some of the knock in the Combine for Luther Burden, again, he went to Missouri. This is not me trying to be a Mizzou hype man. I'm just thinking of guys who were five-star recruit, one of the best recruits in the country, played 3 years, had a great sophomore season, slumped last year because he was the most expensive decoy or the best decoy in all of college football. And there's been a little bit of a wide array of outcomes for Luther heading into this year in college football. He was talked about being a top 5 draft pick. And now there are legitimate people, national media, who are saying he is going to go in the second round. Well, I say he should not go in the second round. At worst, he should go 31. 31 to the Chiefs. Luther Burden is a guy who ran a 4.41, where the concern was, is he a 4.5 guy? Everyone knows the yak ability, the quick athleticism, the acceleration, and the ability to track the deep ball. Look no further than the South Carolina game when he put on an absolute show late in that one. Has he at times disappeared in games? The answer is yes, but it's not all his fault. Just for me, I think if you can get the upside and a player with the yak ability, again, the Chiefs have really driven this home in what they have coveted in wide receivers. Rashee Rice is the best yak guy they've had in a long time. It's no surprise why he had such great success. Xavier Worthy, great player. I expect a lot more from him next year, but the yak is not in the quite same level as Rashee Rice, which we saw with him. How many times did he get tripped up on that first tackle by his shin? And you keep going, well, if he was just this close to breaking that, just this close. Well, Luther Burden does break those. He doesn't have the top end speed of Xavier, but he's breaking that first one. He is 6'1", 205, 210. I just think he really is Jamar Chase body type light. And I'm not comparing him necessarily to Jamar Chase because that's unfair. But as far as if you're saying what is his playing style, what is his body type, that's the guy I would go to. I think Luther Burden is going to be a consistent 1,000-yard receiver, not the upside of Jamar, obviously. But I think he fits the offense really well, especially if Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense is going to be predicated even more so on the lower average depth of target. If that's the case, you need guys who can break tackles. LB3, he sure can.
I'm going to save my take here for just a second to ask you a couple like genuine follow-ups, because you have watched every Chiefs game through the eyes of media and fandom. You watch every Mizzou game through the eyes of both media coverage and fandom. You have been watching Luther Burden with a great self-interest for 3 seasons. And really throughout the entire process surrounding him, right? You've eaten his chips, I imagine.
Yes, delicious.
Is there a concern with you at all about not fit, but redundancy? Where if I say, hey, you have Rashee Rice, and this is the guy you're building around. Now, look, the ACL is a question. The suspension is a short-term question. The ACL can be a longer-term question. It's just a difficult thing that people go through different ways. It's he had a very, very serious knee injury there. But the one thing that I continue to names aside, the type of receiver I'd still like to see in this offense, well, obviously, Jamar Chase would be fine. But I would like to see one of those guys who can line up alone on the outside as your X receiver, who can win one-on-one, who can win with their body, who can win with route running. I would like for this offense to have something that resembles a more traditional X receiver, not DeAndre Hopkins at the very end, but one of those guys much nearer to their peak. So I am curious about the redundancy in the offense, and also curious about what you think about Burden's upside to be one of those guys who can also continue to be a one-on-one problem.
I 100% think he could play on the outside. I just don't think that's his best spot. I think it's like Rasheed, where I think Rasheed can play on the outside. That's just not his best spot. Redundancy is the only reason why I think if he was there at 31, you would not take Luther Burden, because him and Rasheed Rice are such similar style of players. Very, very similar. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I really don't, because that's what the Chiefs covet, and that's the most success they've had since Tyreek Hill has left, is that type of player. So why not double down? I get your thought process on wanting a big X and all that stuff. The Chiefs just don't do that.
They just don't. They
just don't. So
I'd like to see it. Please no one hear me say I'm expecting it. I'm never expecting it.
But that's kind of my point, is the Chiefs don't. So why am I going to sit here? And even when they did, again, they brought in DeAndre Hopkins and they just still didn't even use him. We saw him have a couple of really good games, one the Tampa Bay game specifically, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. We don't need that. That's just not how they roll. Yeah, Golden from Texas would be awesome. I think Golden's probably going to be gone before then too, by the way, just full transparency. Yeah, I just think if Luther Burden is falling the way that some in the national media believe he is, he just makes a lot of sense, almost too much sense, as far as the wide receiver the Chiefs do covet. Now, as far as free agency goes, Devontae Adams was released.
Hold on, I haven't given you my Luther Burden take yet. If you want more Luther Burden content, I have some Luther Burden content I can give you.
Give it to me.
I think it's a great idea. I don't think that redundancy amongst your top two of your top three wide receivers should scare you away from adding one of your new top three wide receivers, right? Like to the point about that the reason behind the redundancy conversation for me is so we could look at it, think about it, and then go, yeah, but I think the Chiefs would be fine with that. I think they'd be okay having Rasheed Rice out there. And now, obviously, with the way that free agency is going to go, this would probably get determined ahead of time. But you're either going to have no Hollywood Brown or probably another 1-year deal of Hollywood Brown, where maybe he can continue to be one of those multi-level guys while Burden gets his feet under him. He's a great player, but so is Xavier Worthy, and so was Rasheed Rice. And so you have to allow for that kind of growth period throughout the rookie season. But if those top guys stay relatively healthy and you get Rice back relatively soon, suspension, injury altogether, I think you could do a whole lot worse than a 2025 largely built on Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Rasheed Rice, and then a little bit of Luther Burden. And then 2026, you have on rookie deals, Rasheed Rice, Xavier Worthy, Luther Burden. That is your starting point. And in 2026, there's probably no Travis Kelce. You are building an entirely different type of offense. Not even a different type of offense. You're building an entirely different era of offense. And with the Travis Kelce point in mind, another pass catcher who gets all of his work by and large at this point from the inside, who can do a bunch of those short range things. It's a weird, incongruous, like it's not a one-to-one comparison plan, but you could make a little bit of an argument that Travis Kelce could kind of pass the baton to Luther Burden in terms of like that role in the offense, where I think Rice's role is going to be even larger than Burden's would be at the beginning. Just a little MIZ fan fiction for you, maybe the idea of Kelce to Burden being a peaceful transition of power there. I think that could be fun.
Well, again, I just think it's a real possibility. Again, I keep going to Yak because when Travis Kelce had his yards after catch, 300 fewer yards this year than in 2022, that was a noticeable part of the offense, right? So, again, just throwing that out there. We can move on, though, because I'm sure people don't want to keep hearing me talk about Mizzou players, so I will.
That's why I had to do it. It's not all you.
But it wasn't even me trying to. The guy could have gone to Kansas or K-State or Iowa State. I still would have been talking to the same guy.
And he keeps he's kind of the name that keeps showing up in that range. And I would rather, whoever he played for, I'm not a particular Mizzou guy. I would rather have Luther Burden than an offensive tackle who was probably really more of a mid-50s kind of guy. Like I would much rather make that play.
Devontae Adams released from the Jets today. Not a big surprise, but still Any thoughts to Devontae, who went over 1,000 yards yet again last year with Aiden O'Connell throwing him the football, as well as the corpse of Aaron Rodgers? Still had 8 touchdowns, played at only 14 games and still put up those numbers. It was like 75 yards a game was what that broke down to, which is just insane. I don't think you'd be a DeAndre Hopkins situation where like D-Hop, we had talked about for years that he's on the decline. Devontae Adams, we have not really had that conversation, and for good reason. Any thoughts to Devontae Adams? Because this would be your big X.
Yeah, I would. If I was Brett Veach, I would be telling Patrick Mahomes to text Devontae Adams. Like that would be step one, or maybe one of the front office members checks in with his agent. They 100% should ring the phone and just see, like, hey man, we're not gonna be able to give you a 25, but would you like to come try to win a championship? You've got one more year with Travis Kelce, and we'll give you. And here's the problem: this number's not going to be enough. We'll give you 12. We'll give you one for 15. The problem is, if you're Devontae Adams right now, you're probably looking for one more deal that does have a few years to it. He's obviously moved around quite a bit, and it's had some sort of uncertainty with the quarterbacks changing, or really the quarterback situation has changed more than he's changed teams. But I don't know if he knows that he wants to be in one spot for kind of the last maybe full act of his career. But I think he's probably too good and will probably demand too much of a market to be a real option for the Chiefs. But they ought to call and just try to figure out what that might look like, because he would be obviously a tremendous fit here. And I'm sure it would be really fun for him to play with Patrick Mahomes on a good football team, because it's been a long time since he's been on one of those.
Yeah, a 3 for $60 deal still feels like it could be in the cards for Devontae. Like if that happens,
the Chiefs won't be that team.
Yeah, that's my point. I wouldn't be surprised if you said Devontae signed for 3 for $60. I just don't think he's quite in that year-to-year gun for hire. He's made a ton of money. I get that. But he also seemingly likes to play with his friends. He liked to play with Derek Carr. That was a big reason why he went to the – remember that? He wanted to play with Derek.
Oh, yeah.
And then he wanted to play with Aaron Rodgers. If you told me he also followed Aaron Rodgers to wherever he goes, the Giants, and plays for like a dumb deal, I could believe it, because he seems like a guy who cares more about playing with his friends than maybe winning. Maybe I'm wrong, but
he did winning with his friends in Green Bay, but it wasn't winning as much as they thought they would. This is just a super easy team to kind of like to throw into conversations like this, but they have a rookie contract quarterback, and they continue to need to build around him. If Chicago said, what'd you say?
Oh, you said Chicago. I was trying to do the same time as you. I said Washington.
Washington would also be easy. I don't know where Debo puts him on that, but like, and I don't know if Chicago's really a fit. They're already paying DJ Moore, and then obviously they drafted Adunze, I think, because the Keenan Allen deal, I think, is completely that's
yes, he is now a free
right?
agent.
And so I think if they wanted to like go with one more kind of like veteran option who's better than Keenan Allen was last year, more Adams, Adunze, and trying to rebuild that offensive line, like it would make sense for a team with a rookie contract quarterback trying to build something to throw some money there. That I don't think. You know what? If you really wanted to get frisky about it, I would say that if Travis Kelce would have retired this offseason, maybe the Chiefs are in on a Devontae Adams type, but his money and his age and his role and everything, I think Adams will probably end up somewhere else.
Yeah. I saw this in the chat earlier. We can talk about tackle now. I think I saw someone say Cam Robinson. Mr. Proctober, we've actually agreed a lot this afternoon. You said Luther over any available left tackle. There are so many positions to get good players at 31. Left tackle is not it. Could not agree more. But I apologize for bringing up the one that I disagree with here. You said this is a great case to sign Cam Robinson and free up what they can so they can do anything at 31. I just think Cam Robinson is Jawan Taylor, but put him on the left side. Maybe you disagree with me. And maybe it's because they both played in Jacksonville, and so I have that there. But to me, they're similar players. It's just, hey, what if we put Jawan on the left side? And I don't know if I want to see the Chiefs pay. He's pretty young. Is it going to be 4 for 80? Are you going to have to go 3 for 70, like 3 or 4 just to bring him in? Like, I don't know. I just that just feels like you're all of a sudden saying, we finally got out of the Jawan Taylor contract next year. Let's just do it again.
And this, a little bit of apples and oranges here, but Cam Robinson, he'll turn 30 in October. And DJ Humphries is 31. He turned 31 in December. So like,
why does Cam Robinson seem so much younger?
it's something that happens all the time that it's just when we are around players more. Joe Tooney is 32. Like Donovan Smith is 31. So Robinson and Humphreys and Donovan Smith are all kind of in a very like similar age range. And obviously health and performance are all part of that. I think to the place where I am of a similar mind on the Jawan Taylor comp is that I think it would probably be a premium price for not a quite premium player. And I mean, this is just how it goes. I don't know the last time a legitimately excellent left tackle hit the market since Trent Williams. Yeah, I don't know if there's been one since that offseason where he and Tooney both hit the market at the same time. And those might be the two best free agent linemen who have hit the market since then. I just don't think that answer is really out there. And I think that barring something else weird happening that we haven't heard about yet, I think Trey Smith's franchise tag is probably the only big money getting spent on the Chiefs offensive line this year. I think a Joe Tooney extension is a different deal because it could free up money this year, but I don't think there's going to be a splashy left tackle signing. I think that ship probably sailed with Trey Smith franchise tag.
I mean, Alaric Jackson was the name I pointed to, but he doesn't have long arms, and he is the outlier. He's the guy that everyone. That's the great white. The great white buffalo? Is that what that movie?
Yes.
The great white buffalo of an undrafted
buffalo.
left tackle who's a stud. Right. Like that's again, it came a stud year, his final year, the contract year. But that was the definition of a guy growing in an organization, becoming a stud as an undrafted left tackle. And then he went back to the Rams. So that now makes the bidding war higher for two players. Ronnie Stanley, who finally had a healthy season, of course, coming in a contract year. And then Cam Robinson, who, again, we talked about, is probably getting a premium price tag for a non-premium player. I'm not saying he's bad. It's like, I don't think Jawan Taylor's bad. The reason why I was so upset with the contract is because you're paying a slightly above average right tackle elite money. That's dumb. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that I'm going to have with Cam Robinson. Is he better than the current left tackle situation? Yes, but as a slightly above average left tackle paying elite money, is that the best way to use your resources for this team? And heck, maybe it might be because the left tackle situation was so bad last year. But I also think that maybe full offseason with DJ Humphries, Kingsley with another. Oh my gosh, I can't let him say it. Kingsley with another.
Do this though, yeah.
But like, you drafted a young guy who's raw, who you knew, who just turned 22, and you're like, yeah, we're done after 2 games. Okay, well, maybe you saw somebody in those 2 games that you said there's zero bleeping chance, or it's because the Chiefs are going for a three-peat. They're not the Panthers and don't have the time to let him develop for a couple of years. Could be that one too. I just think the Chiefs are in a tough situation, and this is leading me into why they franchise tagged Trey Smith, even though we thought that was no realistic possibility. Mm-hmm. My thought process here is he actually might play on the franchise tag this year without an extension. He might actually be just a franchise tag 1 year left in KC, and then that contract comes off, Jawan comes off, and Joe might come off if they decide to not extend him and say, let's just rebuild this and retool this entire thing because we'll have left tackle more options, not this offseason, but the next one. If that's a thought process, I can actually understand that. And they're going, you know what? We don't want to mess with 2 positions this year. Let's just bring back the guy we know in Trey, and we'll figure out 2026 and 2026. Because right now, we don't have a great option at left tackle. Let's at least make sure we have 4 spots solidified.
I don't hate that. I would need to take another pass at all of the cap numbers and everything because I forgot the tag was on Thursday, so we didn't talk about this last week. But I have been under the assumption that this is all kind of in the path towards extending Trey Smith, which is a move that I don't think would be a disaster, but I don't feel great about. Like, it's not my favorite move for them to make at this point because we are talking about an offensive line that still has 2 pretty big holes in it, or at least like 1.5 pretty big holes in it. And it had the best interior offensive line in football all year last year, and it was still a mess for a huge portion of the season. Then obviously got worse when they started tinkering with it in the Super Bowl. I guess, they started tinkering before that, but it was at its worst in the Super Bowl, a tinkered version of it. It's fine if they want to pay Trey Smith because he's the best offensive lineman who's going to be available in the free agent class, but it does kind of back you into a corner at tackle. if you extend him long term, I start looking at some of those big numbers down the road and getting a little bit sweaty. If they can move enough around, and this might be a Clark Hunt thing, if they pay Trey Smith all that money on the tag this year, and they pay to restructure Patrick Mahomes, and they pay to restructure Chris Jones, and maybe they extend Joe Tooney by a tiny bit because they are just planning on having Trey Smith for one more year. If they do all of those things, they might be able to open up enough money this year to bring back Hollywood and Amenahu, maybe, and then just kind of a bunch of guys to fill out that roster. But obviously, your pool of money starts shrinking, and I don't know, maybe you get creative on who some of those options might be. But I would almost prefer him play out the franchise tag this year, although it's not what I expect to happen. I really though think that they need to have something resembling a final resolution on that before the league year starts, so they know what their budget is.
And that's on Wednesday next week, correct? Isn't it the 12th?
I was gonna say 13th. I'll tell you this, Sterling. I've had it on my calendar for about 2 months, knowing when those days came, it was gonna get busy around here. You're right. The tampering period is on the 10th. That's Monday, and that's when deals start getting agreed to. So the Chiefs need to know what's gonna happen by Monday, really.
Yeah. And I see Donovan Smith is going to be healthy, available, and cheap. I just think at this point, Donovan Smith, they had that option last year and said no, and went with DJ Humphries, right?
Who was presumably less healthy than Donovan Smith was last year. I mean, yeah, if Humphries gets an offer or whatever, if the Chiefs want to bring them both back and make that just the two of them and Kingsley or whatever, cool, I guess. I don't know. I'm expecting it's more likely that it's Humphries at this point, but
yeah,
I can't say I'd be stunned either way.
Yeah, I guess my thing with Donovan is at times I think look back with rose-colored glasses.
For everyone except for Orlando Brown Jr., who gets colored glasses,
who was the best of those left tackles.
Yes.
Again, it's because of how it ended up with the contract and all that stuff. I get it, I understand. But between Donovan and Orlando Brown and Kingsley and all these guys, all the guys, Orlando Brown Jr. had clearly the best of those guys, but for some reason, people hate him. And full transparency, I've interviewed him a couple of times. He is so nice and so fun to talk with, just an enjoyable human being. I'm not saying he's elite, but I also think that he never really got the credit he deserved here in KC. That's I'll leave it there. Donovan Smith was really good in the playoffs. I feel like people gloss over what he did in the regular season. I kind of think that's a viewpoint or a talking point that gets not talked about is his regular season, when we all said this exact same thing as we're talking about right now, but then he had that playoff run where he was great, and we're all sitting here going, well, just bring him back. Did we forget about the 17 games where he was the equivalent of, I don't know,
what people thought Orlando Brown Jr. was?
Yeah. Yes. Although Wanya Morris, I actually thought did pretty good for the majority of his time at left tackle until it got to be Kingsley Suamataia. That was a weird phenomenon, I thought, because I thought Wanya actually looked pretty good for like 8 weeks. And I'm like, oh, he's the guy. And then he had like 3 straight weeks where you're like, okay, no, he is clearly not the guy. He is a good swing tackle where if it's a game or two, I trust him. If it's 5, 6, 7, 8 games, I don't think he's the answer. Okay, there we go. Let's go through a couple quick players here, just free agents. I want to get your thoughts, just a little quick run through here. If they're back or not. Justin Reed.
Probably not. Seems like he's going to have a pretty good market. The Chiefs have in-house safeties. I think they would have made I think the Chiefs would have made a more enthusiastic pursuit of him than they did for Tyrann Mathieu. But I think Reed's probably going to have a larger market elsewhere.
I will also point out there are a lot of really good veteran safeties. I wonder what that does to his market specifically, or if the Chiefs decide, hey, well, we like having at least one veteran safety in this room. That's kind of been the talking point. They just don't sign him to second contracts. They like that one veteran. So I do wonder if it's like a Cisco or I think what Simmons was. Cisco would be on the younger side of the veterans. That would almost be like the Justin Reed when they signed him from Houston, where it's like, there's upside, really hard hitter. If people remember, because he did that against KC, he laid someone out. I forget who it was.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It was a dirty hit, but he's a hard hitter.
And cheaper, and if you want to rely more on the guys in-house, Juan Thornhill's available now. If you want a different type of style guy, but if Jaden Hicks takes on the Justin Reed kind of thumper role, and maybe you get Thornhill back in there, a guy who's been in this defense before, I think they have in-house options. But I think they'd be happy to have Reed back if his market didn't work out.
Also, Hufanga for the 49ers, who was an all-pro before he got injured a couple of years. Hufanga, he was going to be like the dude, and then he got injured, and now who knows what his market's going to be. Yeah. And then Jeremy Chin as well, the Panther, who was incredible, or at least incredible is a hard he was really good. He was blossoming, kind of fell by the wayside in Washington last year, but I still think that's another one of those guys that the Chiefs could, I think. I don't know if that either tampers the Justin Reed market down or not, or if that means the Chiefs could go with another dude. Just throwing that out there. Nick Bolton.
Really, really hard for me to see him coming back. Another reason that I'd call Justin Reed, because you're probably going to have kind of one veteran in the defense you're kind of relying on. But I think that's largely going to be Drew Tranquil. I think tagging Trey Smith, I think, was the end of the Nick Bolton conversation for me.
Wow. I think it would be hard to not see Nick Bolton back next year.
Really?
Yes, I think Nick Bolton is back in KC next year. I don't know what his market's going to his market is going to materialize as.
Do you have a number per year that you would draw your line at?
And my initial thought, just right there, I should have probably looked this up. My initial per year is 13.5.
He will make more money than that somewhere else.
I don't know.
I wouldn't pay that.
You and I differ. We know that. That's again.
I think he's going to make more than you want to pay him, and he's definitely going to make more than I'd want to pay him.
Fair. I just don't know what his market's going to look like. I think losing Reed and Nick Bolton though would be fairly devastating for the brainchild that is this defense. Throwing that out.
You got your backup Mike, who has run the defense before, and Brian Cook is kind of a veteran in this defense at this point now. Trent McDuffie is a veteran. Obviously, he's going to end up on the outside more often than not. And of course, Chris Jones, a lot of that defensive line is going to be returning. So, it would certainly be a curveball, but I think that's where it's headed.
And I understand the positional versatility and the non-premium positions and paying those guys. I get that. I just don't see the legit. And maybe they draft a guy, and maybe it's a free agent, but I don't see that replacement for Bolton. I understand Drew Tranquil, but then who's replacing Drew? Because I don't think it's Leo. And I like Leo a lot, but I think they've pretty much put him in the perfect role for this team.
Because Willie Gay back as well. I'm Colin Saunders, Willie Gay, and Juan Thornhill can all come back on cheap deals now and all fill roles for this defense day one.
Briscoe wants Dan Sorensen back as well.
Not what I said.
Yeah, verbatim actually.
Not.
All right, Turk Wharton.
He's going to be a super interesting one. Is he going to get a Colin Saunders deal where somebody wants to give him some real money on a shorter term thing? Is somebody going to give him a longer term commitment? I think the Chiefs would be more than happy to bring him back, but I'm afraid that he's going to get. I feel like he's going to catch somebody's eye where they're going to go, man, he got better every year, and then the injury, but then he got better again after that. I think there's an upward trajectory, so I kind of think someone's probably going to pay Tershawn Wharton, and I think it's going to end up being a position the Chiefs really need to draft at well this year.
Yeah, I'm really bummed because I like Turk Wharton. I've talked about him all season long. That's kind of been my unsung defensive hero for this team. I've really liked Turk, and I just don't believe the Chiefs will be able to match what other teams will be able to pay for him. I do wonder if the Colin Saunders deal, where he wasn't super successful down in New Orleans, just sitting here and teams are like, well, Colin wasn't and had some of the similar traits, and we'll just use that Chris Jones was the reason why they had success.
Sure.
And if that's the case, maybe the lack of Colin Saunders' success once he left, outside of the phenomenal interception against Patrick Mahomes on Monday Night Football. Remember that one? And he was stumbling down the.
I was one of the most. Yes, one of the most athletic things that happened this season.
But I just wonder what Turk's market is going to look like, and that's one I can't predict. Charles Omenihu is another interesting one because of injury. He's been really good when he's on the field, and we've seen the Chiefs' defensive line, in my opinion, evolve when he's on the field. But he's not on the field very often. Whether it's suspension, whether it's injuries, doesn't really matter at this point. You got to play, and he hasn't played. where do you think Charles Omenihu, is he back in KC? Is he getting that deal? It's not going to be the deal that he wants. What he says on Twitter is I don't think reality. He's always talking about how like doubting and all that stuff. It's like, it's not doubting, my guy. It's because you've played 16 games and 2 seasons here.
Yeah, and the upside of that is that, you have a suspension and then you have like one explosive, devastating injury. So that's as opposed to it being, recurring nagging things. And you're just wondering, like, is this guy's knees, are his knees ever going to get him through a season or whatever it is? I think he should be better next year than he was in the back half of this year because he was coming off of a pretty fresh ACL. I think that he makes a lot of sense to be one of their relatively few priority, like mid-level free agents. He turns 28 in August. There's no way they're giving him more than a 2-year deal. It could be a 3-year deal that's actually 2. But if you're a Omenihu, again, this is kind of a spot that's very hard to find yourself in as a player who hasn't gotten the like enormous contract extension that you kind of build up for. He ends up getting these sort of like good size, prove it sort of middle investment deals. And the best of Charles Omenihu's tape would get him 3 for $55. It's like legit, like that's real money. When he's missed good chunks of time, when he is getting closer and closer to 30, I really don't know how other teams view Charles Omenihu. I think I do know how the Chiefs view him, which is as a legitimate, like pretty high-end edge rusher who's a really good fit in this defense, who's really good on the edge and in the interior. I think he largely got out-snapped by Mike Dana because he was coming back from injury. If you gave me 17 games of Charles Omenihu next year, I think he's probably again, this is the if you give me 17 games of Charles Omenihu next year, I think he probably finishes the year as the Chiefs' best edge rusher, like right there just ahead of George Karlaftis. Or at least those guys are very, very close. So I would be willing to pay him a little bit more than would feel like a steal. And I think it's going to have to be 3 years that's really just 2, or maybe the Chiefs have a little bit of wiggle room in year 2 if he just absolutely the bottom falls out. But I'm also not very excited to think about what this defense looks like, where it's just Chris Jones, Mike Dana, George Karlaftis, and Derek Nottie or whatever across the front.
FAU.
Didn't honestly, not
Unleash
a joke.
him.
Not a joke. Did not even cross my mind. That
That's on you.
That entire chat about Charles Omenihu, he did not cross my mind. I think he is. I think he's DE4.
Defensive end 4. I was like,
yeah,
I thought you were making like a D4 joke at first, and I was like, I don't think he was ever offsides.
No, I think Felix is a guy who, if he wasn't a first round pick, if he didn't go to a local school, I think that he would slot in as like, oh, you know what? Hey, number 97 made another play. Good for him. Where'd he come from? And I think he's going to do that throughout his rookie contract, and then hopefully he catches on and keeps his NFL career going. I don't think the Chiefs are planning on a breakout there.
Doesn't get many snaps, doesn't get a chance to make many plays, but the few plays he does make and the few snaps he does get, he makes the most of his opportunity. I will say that. It feels like every time he's like, wow, he had like 3 splash plays. He played 6 snaps. Yeah. So I actually do wonder if we could see a little more FAU this year. Maybe I'm wrong. We knew he was raw coming out. I understand it's already been 2
I'm open.
seasons.
I'll say this. There's no reason to like cut him out of training camp or anything. No. Like give him another run at all of this. It seems like the Chiefs weren't that excited to get him out there. So I've kind of adjusted my expectations accordingly.
Yeah, I'm excited for training camp this year, and specifically for FAU. We'll see. Again, we don't need to touch too long because this is a conversation for another day.
Offensively, like Joshua Uche out there,
just because you have the same first name. We'll quickly
and I think he played the same number of snaps last year for the Chiefs.
We'll quickly rip through offense. Really, Kareem Hunt.
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Hollywood Brown.
55% chance. I think it's slightly more likely than not.
And then I guess one Juju. Because I think he's a role.
56% chance.
I think Juju kind of has a role in this team.
Yeah, I do too. And I think, and also like, I can't imagine that anybody else is going to see what he did for the Chiefs last year and like go to a bidding war. And I can't imagine that Juju has any desire to be anywhere else. Be here, catch 30 passes, make 100 blocks, and get your snaps. I think that's
just block your ass off is what it is. Juju is just a very good blocking wide receiver, and you need that role.
Locker room guy, blocks his tail off, and will catch you a few first downs when you need him.
Is Justin Watson catching balls next season? Got to end on a tough one.
Probably. He's probably going to be back with like Tyquan Thornton and Justin Ross and Nico Armigio are all on the practice squad. I'll say there's one Dark Knight pool stick over the knee style battle here. I think there's one roster spot for Justin Watson and McCole Hardman.
Wow. I think Remigio, by the way, is on the roster next year as the sixth wide receiver / just return man.
He might actually be the McCole. He might have taken that from McCole Hardman now. I don't know, man. I feel like I just feel like I am making things up and lying to people when you're like, so which of these like 4 wide receivers who the Chiefs love more than life itself are going to stick around? Like, I don't know. Like, they probably shouldn't bring any of those guys back except for Juju. But like Hardman and Watson both keep coming back. And also, this is part of it. They come back and make plays. They come back and do useful things. So it wouldn't surprise me, but I also think that there's a real inflection point. You gotta make sure that young guys are developed.
All I know is the Chiefs' quest to win the three-peat starts right now, baby.
Can we trademark 3 out of 4, Pete? Is that anything?
What about 75%? Ain't bad.
75%, Pete?
Well, in fairness, if you are getting a passing college grade on Super Bowls, that's pretty damn good. I feel like that counts. I mean, 2 out of 3 is still like you're passing. D's get degrees, right? Or is it D's get diplomas?
I think both work. I was thinking if you can get to C's, you can, you've got a C of red. You've got D plus fence. We're scraping by with our Super Bowl winning percentage. I don't know. It's kind of a thinky one.
Yeah, it's Super Bowl winning percentage tied in with Josh Briscoe's homeschool grades. They are just shaking hands. Homeschool's pretty tough, huh?
Hold on, let me do the math. Hold on. Hey!
Appreciate everyone in the chat hanging out with us today. I know it is the dog days of the offseason because we don't even have like training camp. We don't have anything crazy going on right now. So we will keep you updated as much as we can. Again, Combine was fun. If you did not watch it and you are part of a fan of the local schools, Mizzou, KU, K-State, a lot of guys really showed out, including DJ Giddens. And Briscoe is holding a very cute dog.
He said it's the dog days. I thought, hey, there's a dog in here.
Not Scout. Is that
this is Hopper.
Oh yeah, Hopper.
He's got
I think Hopper just ripped your mic out. I'm pretty sure Hopper said, you know what? Screw that. Yeah, we lost your audio, Briscoe. Your dog just said, bleep that. I'm done. Give me food. Appreciate everyone listening. Until next time, we are out.